This is gonna be a first for this YouTube channel. I don't think I've ever singly just filmed a video building up a motor, but I said, F it, we're gonna film it because we ain't got shit else to do. I need to get this motor done. So I have a customer build that I did off camera. Sick ass bike. I had a chassis laying around and I used it as a way to get someone to do a full restoration. Lock that in. And I built up the entire bike to the point where I'm just missing the motor to complete it. I had bought another machine the other day specifically for this build so I could just take the motor from that, strip it down, rebuild it. I ended up needing some new cases, so bought that yesterday. Now, this is like not your average build. I'm sure majority of you guys that are watching this right now are probably gonna use your same case, potentially use the same crank, but we got a full spot treatment going on right now. And a lot of it is already pre-assembled, so there are some things that I won't be doing. Like I already put all the studs in the cylinder, already tapped all the threads to make sure that everything is smooth and clean, because one thing you might notice if you've worked on Banshees before, sometimes the head stud threads are shot. That's mainly because when you bore and hone the cylinders, you gotta take those out. So how many times the same stud going in and out, shit just gets caked up in there, and sometimes it goes on sideways and ruins the thread. So I feel like I've had so much bad luck over the past couple of years with cylinder head studs, the threads being shot. So what I like to do with every set of cylinders that I have bore and honed while the studs are out, I'll just run a tap through the 5 head stud threads right there, and then the 4 intake mounts as well. That way it just cleans everything up and there's no binding. If you're using stainless steel bolts, those are the worst when it comes to binding. So just something to keep in mind. That being said, I also set up the pistons. We're gonna be using some 513 Wiseco forged pistons. They have the rings on them already. And then I put the clips on one side to make it easy because I knew that I was gonna be building this motor today. I already put the billet basket on the gear. I just grinded down all 4 tabs, punched those out. You use the OEM gear and you use the OEM washer right there. And I just use these $100 billet baskets. I don't go crazy with the billet baskets just because they're all the same. They're all coming from China. They just laser engrave their logo on it. So I just do this Amazon basket. They work great. The OEM baskets, I've bought plenty of them over the years. After a couple of rides, they start to have slack. Pretty much what we have here is a brand new case, a brand new OEM crankshaft. Inside of here, we got a brand new stator side cover, brand new clutches, brand new crossover tube, sprocket. I mean, every little miscellaneous part that we needed. The kicker I had re-zinced. The shifter is zinced as well. Got a brand new neutral safety switch cover with a brand new O-ring on the back there. I started assembling the clutch cover yesterday as well. So we're just gonna start piecing together what I have here. But this is a full engine build and we'll kind of make it like a tutorial. I'm not really the greatest when it comes to teaching things, and I do things a certain way, which some people might not agree with. Also, I have crazy ADHD, so I'll be building a motor and then I'm going to work on a taillight over there. Like my mind is just all over the place. That's why I've never done any how-to videos. Doing shit like this I actually enjoy. Doing a how-to video, I don't enjoy. But we're just gonna flow and see what happens. We're building up a crispy OEM motor. OEM case, you're looking at like $1,000 here. OEM Banshee parts are not cheap by any means. And you'll find that out the hard way once you start tearing down and one thing's broken, the next thing's broken. You're like, Jesus fucking Christ, I could have bought a whole ATV by the time I'm done building the motor. Yep, that is the truth. So nice, fresh block. It's got nothing in it. One thing I will say about starting from the bare bones is that you have to put all the studs in individually, and that shit fucking sucks. Case to case studs and then the case to cylinder studs.
Represent. Tips and hustlers,
First things first, we're gonna have to take these studs out of the other case, the one that I originally had planned on using, which doesn't always go to plan, right? You try and remove them. They've been in the Banshee for fucking God knows how long, potentially 30 years. One thing you gotta keep in mind when you're buying a new block is that it doesn't come with the plugs for the shaft that goes through the shift forks. So you have the first one and then the second one. The mount for the kicker, you need to buy that too. So all this is literally a bare block. You're gonna need a 10 mil. So find yourself a nice little 10. I'm missing half my sockets. They're probably all on carts over there. So take your 10, loosen these 2 bolts, and you split your case in half. Voila, there's $1,000. Absolutely nothing. Now you got these 2 bolts that are fresh, and I'm gonna zinc coat these to match the remainder. Word. So first things first, we need to get these 2 plugs. So I'm gonna grab the other case and I'm gonna bang those out. I'm gonna take this long extension, put it through where the shaft will go for the shift forks, bang that bitch out. One shot, how you doing? Plugs are out. The main reason why I didn't use this case, the case halves didn't match. So on the back of the case right here, there's two numbers. For this one is like a B and then it says 62 underneath it, or it's like a 6 and then 62. So the top half should have the same numbers. If they don't, it's a Frankenstein piece. It's not good to do that. From factory, they are cut directly in half and they are mated for each other. So I'm gonna layer down sideways, put a little bit of assembly lube so they slide in nice. And then I'll probably just take like an 8mm banger in there. So I'm gonna take this little socket, tap it a couple times, bang her in there, make sure she goes in evenly. We're gonna lube up this other side and do the same exact thing. And there you have it. If you don't do that, what's gonna happen is it's just gonna fucking piss out oil. I guess the next thing that I'm gonna do, since I'm like right here anyways, I'll put this seal and I'll put this neutral safety switch on. This little seal guy right here. Take a little bit of assembly grease. We'll just pack the lip and then you should just be able to push this bad boy. Make sure that the dowel pins are always sitting. I like to have them on the bottom. That way they don't fall out. The top ones, when you're moving the top case around, you might not be paying attention, it could fall out and then your case ain't gonna line up right. So this is a neutral safety switch and this goes where the shift drum sits. So that's got a brand new O-ring on there. I'm gonna put a little bit of blue Loctite on here. That way they don't back out. One thing I like to do as well is just put some brake cleaner on a rag, wipe off all the oil on the new cases. When you're rebuilding your motor, you should definitely make sure that the mating surface is super clean. We are fortunate, enough to have a vapor home machine here, which cleans up the cases very well. But most times you still gotta go with a razor blade and get off all the silicone from the previous build. From factory, they honestly barely come with any silicone on them, so you might luck out, but sometimes people put like crazy amounts of silicone, so it's just a bitch to get off. I like to clean it really good, and as you can see, it's got plenty of oil on it from the factory. I just want it clean, that way the silicone will sit and dry nice. Dude, they fucking caress this thing like a baby. Look at that. Yamaha, that's genuine. Very genuine of them. So far, the bill is already at $2,000 with 2 parts. So first things first, if you're using a hot rod crankshaft, you're gonna have O-rings on these bearings. The OEM ones have these little pins that line up and they all need to be facing down forward. What we're gonna do is lift the crankshaft up, spin these over, make sure that those are seated, make sure that this one is seated right there as well. So you see I got one pin right there, one pin right there, one pin right there, and a little guy right here. So every single seal gets packed with grease. If you get a leak around the crank seal, it's a sad day because the whole motor's got to come apart. Remember, those pins got to be down. All the internals for this motor are coming out of that other motor. Pretty much we're just not using the case, and then obviously we're not using the crankshaft, the pistons, but transmission and other little miscellaneous internals, they're coming out of that motor. So we're gonna grab the water pump gear, the nut and the washer, clean this up real quick. Building a motor, you'll end up using a lot of this or just gasoline. You might save some money with gasoline. When putting on the crank seal, there is a correct way that this goes. The prongs gotta go inside. Prongs gotta be sitting against the bearing, just like that. It's gonna go on the gear like this, not like this. You should not see these prongs when you have the clutch cover off. It's gotta be facing this direction. It will leak if you put it in wrong. Now I'm gonna pack the shit out of this with grease. After you're done putting grease on it, what you can do is you can just slide it on just like that, and boom. That is how the seal should be. So what I'll do, I'll also put a little bit of grease on the crankshaft itself. It already comes pre-oiled, but sometimes it can be a little stiff getting on it first, but once you get it on, she should slide on pretty nice. Now I'm just gonna lift this crankshaft up a little bit, push that seal in, and it should seat right in the groove, like that. That is how the crank seal is supposed to sit. Now that we have the seals on there, I'm gonna take this whole crankshaft off. Like I said earlier in this video, some people might not like the way that I'm going about this, but that's just how I do things. Now you need to make sure that the C-clip is in there. So you got 3 C-clips. One goes here on the right side of the crankcase. The other bigger C-clip goes on the back with the transmission right there. Then you got this other little guy on the back right here. Now, what I'll do, I'll pick the crankshaft back up, put it in, make sure all the pins align. Now what you can do is line up this gear on the crankshaft and grab your keyway. So what I'm gonna do now is take a little bit of Yamaha Bond, dabble it onto this keyway. Then I'm just gonna make sure that the gear and the crankshaft are aligned, push that right in, just like that. Take a little screwdriver, push it in all the way, and then what I'll do, just like wipe off any excess. Then what you do is you put your water pump gear on there. Next, you would put this washer, but there's a specific way that it goes. It's gotta look like a UFO when you put it on. It's gotta be beveling down. I'm gonna put a little bit of Yamaha Bond on that washer on the backside. Bam, bam, just like that. A little bit of Loctite, nothing crazy. And put this nut on there. Now, once we have majority of the motor assembled, we'll tighten that up, because if you don't tighten that up before you pressure test it, it's gonna leak out through there. So next, what we're gonna do is install the shift drum. The shift star is still on there. You don't have to take that off when you're disassembling the motor. It's up to you. In this case, it's still on there. We're gonna put a little bit of assembly lube in there. Make sure she's lubed up real nice. You know, start finger banging her. Up, down, left, right. And up in here too. Make sure she's nice and oiled up. Slide that right up in there. Before you put the clip, what you're gonna need to do is install the first shift fork. Put a little bit of lube there. Put a little bit of lube on the shafty. Toss her up a little bit. Sometimes they could be a little bit of a bitch, so you just tap them with the rubber mallet. And they'll slide through. Put a little bit of lube right there in the fork. And that's that. Then I like to put a little bit of lube in between the cracks, pause. Next, what you're gonna wanna do is grab the lock for the shift drum, pull it out a little bit, put the bolt right there, start that bolt, grab the next one, which we already put Loctite on these. Make sure you Loctite them, that way they don't back out, and make sure that they are snug. Now what you gotta do after the shaft is installed, put the clip inside the groove, put the fucking screwdriver on it, give it a nice little tap. There you go. And now you're gonna repeat the same thing on the other side. The shift forks are labeled. You'll notice this one says number 1 and this one says number 2. Number 2 sits furthest away from the right side of the motor. This is the side where your sprocket would be. So that's how it sits. We'll first ream her out with some fucking lube. So number 1 obviously goes first. A nice little tap with a rubber mallet. Before we send her through, I'm gonna add a little bit of lube in there. So number 1 is installed. Now you take number 2, put a little bit of lube, slide it on through. Now you're gonna take this second clip, you put it inside the groove, which could be a little bit of a hassle to get to because it's very crowded and and then it just falls right in. So what you're gonna have to do is have a magnet around or a screwdriver with a magnet, and then you gotta fish her out like that. I swear to God, all the other people that like do engine how-tos, they make it seem so easy. I know they're dealing with this shit too. Try and balance the screwdriver on top of the clip, just lightly tap it with the rubber mallet. She's locked in. I spin it around a couple of times. What I like to do is just put a little bit of lube in between the grooves. Now we're gonna go ahead and grab the transmission. Oh, let that slide right out. Hit this with a little brake clean quick. Now what you're gonna do is either take the first shaft or the second one. We are going to drop the transmission right in there. Make sure your bearings line up with the clips, and the fork should be right there where that groove is and right there where that groove is. Then we're gonna take a little bit of assembly lube, spin it in there, spin it over a couple of times. We're gonna take this collar that sits in between the seal on the back of the transmission, just clean it up really quick with some brake cleaner and a rag. This is a bearing that goes on the end of the transmission. We're gonna put a little bit of assembly lube on there, throw it on there, spin it around, and we're gonna line this up right here with this shift fork. Make sure that the bearing is also sitting right in that slot. This is a slotted bearing. Then we're gonna spin it over, make sure that everything is good. And while we're spinning it over, I like to just add a little bit of assembly lube, because obviously this is gonna be like on a first start. You know, just make sure she's all lubed up. You don't have to do that, I just do that. As I'm spinning it, you just wanna make sure that everything shifts properly. So slowly just spinning the shift drum. And I'm gonna go back. Make sure there's no binding at all. And she's good. I'm just gonna put the push rod in. It's important that this is hella lubed. Push that right in there. So after you got the push rod in there, you can take the ball, put it inside the transmission, and then I like to just take the screwdriver, push it all the way in. Sometimes with a magnetic screwdriver, though, she'll come right back out. So we'll just take this extension, shove her on in there. Now, before we put the studs in the top half of the case, I'm just gonna go ahead and put this seal onto the collar. Also pack this with grease, just like that. This is probably the worst part about what I'm doing right now is I don't have studs for this new case. So my plan is to reuse the ones that were on the other case in which I had planned on using. So what I'm gonna do right now is I'm gonna put PB Blaster, let it go in between the dowel pin and the stud, sit for a little bit, and then I'll take the stud removal tool and we're just gonna slowly try and get these out. If you are super aggressive with it or trying to do it with like an impact, it might just snap instantly. Keep in mind, like, this shit is old. I'm gonna let this sit for a couple of minutes before I just start ripping on this thing. So while that's drying, we're gonna switch over the pigtail on this stator from a round plug to a square plug, because this Banshee is a newer style Banshee, and the stator it came off an older style Banshee. I just had vapor hone the stator plate, so it's just like super clean. That being said, we're gonna have to do a little bit of swapping.
It all begins in a smoke-filled room, some fat bags of boom. The more that I consume, the more my brain's in tune. True, many assume to get...
So what we just did was swapped the pigtail. So this was like 87 to like 94, I believe, come the circle harness, or the circle plug, should I say. So we swapped that over to the newest style pigtail. So now this can run with the newest style harness, and everything will be Gucci. A little bit of heat. That's your first one. We might have a better chance getting the bottom though.
And once the herbal mist sets in, then it begins. I'll be expressing verbal madness, thinking thoughts of sin. I blends poetic scriptures from the scrolls of old.
So we were able to get out all the bottom ones. The first one that we tried on the top snapped. We're probably gonna have the same result for the rest of them. Before we even bother taking out the top studs, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna clean this top half. We're gonna silicone the entire thing, top and bottom. We're gonna pull this transmission out just a little bit so we get some silicone underneath the seal. Same thing with the crankshaft on both sides. So we're gonna be using Yamaha Bond 4. I use this on every single motor build. She's the best shit. Just gonna put some on my glove and then just like tap along for the third time. We're gonna take this out.
Smacking them MCs, leave them praying on their knees while I'm puffing these trees. With ease.
All right, before we seal both case halves, just going over and making sure that everything is seated properly. Make sure you put sealant underneath this back transmission seal, underneath this stator side seal, and then clutch side cover seal. You should be ready to rock. The dowel pins, they gotta be there. We left both valves on the bottom. Now as I put the top case half, I'm going to hold the crank rods until they can balance themselves. And voila, we want this motor crispy. We don't want no crusty bolts, and we don't have time to wait to get the bolts back from zinc coating. So, that being said, we're opening a nice fresh Bonzi Garage bolt kit. This is the upper case half bolt kit. It comes with 7 bolts total, and it comes with all the washers, and they're all different sizes. That one right there. The 2 smaller bolts, one goes in the center back here, and then the other one, number 15. So it's 15 and 16, they get the smaller bolts. And then the largest bolt is number 11. Follow the numbers. You start at number 9 and you should end at number 16. You're not gonna like cinch those down tight. You're only doing 7.2 foot-pounds. So what I like to do, I like to put the top case half bolts first, and then what I'll do, stand this thing up. Be careful it doesn't fall back, but normally it could like almost balance itself out. I'm gonna put all new bolts on the bottom as well. We sell that on bonzigarage.com. We'll get 8 fresh bolts. Once you got those snug, I'm gonna go back to the top and I'm gonna torque these top ones to 7.2 foot-pounds. So you're gonna start at number 9, follow the pattern all the way to number 16. Now we're going to flip the motor, do the same thing to the bottom. So this one's gotta be set at 20 foot-pounds. Now what you're gonna do is you're gonna follow the numbers 1 to 8. Now, once you have all those tightened up, let's come back to the top and just double check that it's 7.2. Now we need to install the bearing for the clutch arm, and then we'll put that seal, washer, clutch arm, so on and so forth. All right, so you're definitely gonna wanna put some fucking lube up in here. Get up in there with your finger, inside the bearing as well. You can set it where it should be. Push down with your finger real quick. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna grab a socket that is about the same width of it. With the rubber mallet, just tap, tap, tap. Grab the seal, put a little bit of grease up in there. Press down with your finger. This one should go in really easy. There's 2 things that are really easy to forget. One being the washer that sits on top of that seal right there. And then another thing too, in which I just cleaned, if you're swapping cases, do not forget to put this little rubber grommet right there. That way, no water, no grease, no sand, no nothing gets in here that's easily forgotten. Now you're gonna wanna put your spring onto the clutch arm and then grab some assembly lube, throw a little bit on there, get in there with your finger, down the hatch she goes, nice and smooth. I'm gonna take number 9 out. I'm gonna put the locking on. So this goes like this, goes into number 9, like that. I see a lot of people do it backwards and put it for number 13. That goes number 9. Cinch it and then give it half a turn. I'm gonna put the dowel pins, and there's 4 of these, 2 in the rear. Now we're gonna go ahead and put the sprocket. This bolt's a little crustaceous, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna vapor blast it really quick, give you a little before. 2 seconds on the vapor blast to get this thing looking right. That was literally like maybe 20 seconds, so a lot better. Got a brand new 14 tooth going on there. This does not sit like that. This sits like that. And then the lock washer sits like that. Make sure that you have the indent on the bolt facing towards the motor while holding the impact. I'm just gonna give it a couple of little light zaps. And now I'm just gonna fold over one side of the lock washer. Going back to the clutch side, we're gonna put this case lock right here. Once you got the case lock on, you can put one of the washers on, followed up by the collar for the basket, and then this last one will go behind the inner hub basket. Like I was saying earlier, if you're putting a new case together, you're gonna have to put this little holder in there for the kicker gear. Put a little bit of lube. She ain't ever coming out. Now we're gonna put the coolant joint, so that slides in there like that, followed up by a clip. Every time you take the clutch cover off, you should put a new O-ring, because these could tend, to rip, cause a leak of coolant into your clutch cover. So brand new OEM O-ring there. Put the stator on.
Red eyes that helps me prophesize, or am I hypnotized by the chocolate stimuli? Who can deny? No doubt my shit fly.
Don't forget, you got your dowel pin, locks your clutch cover, aligns it. Don't forget, it goes right here in this hole. Like I said from the very jump, kind of all over the place when I do this shit, so you don't necessarily have to do it in the same exact order as me. Kicker gear is now installed, ready to be kicked. The spring, then what is this? The detent, the arm, and then the bolt, just like that. And this is gonna sit in between this little hook. You're gonna put it in there, just start to thread that bolt in. Now you're gonna go in with a screwdriver. You're gonna push the spring back up in there. Now you need to get this underneath the star, like that. Then you're gonna go in with a nice 10 mil, start reaming her. So now as I'm putting in what I believe is called the eccentric screw, what you wanna do, keep it a little bit loose, grab the shift shaft, make sure you lube it with the shift shaft inside here. You wanna make sure that it's even on both sides of the shaft, and what I mean about that is these claws should have the same amount of gap on the top and the bottom, and this screw is going to adjust that. So you want the same amount of gap. This spring happened to be pretty fucking shot. I wasn't getting the same gap, so I went ahead and changed it with not a brand new one, but a better one, and it instantly fixed our problem. Now we got the right gap in between, straight shot down the middle. I think we're ready to go. Pull this shift shaft back out. Grab yourself a nice 17. I'm gonna go back in there, crimp it down. It's a little tough to get to. Might be easier to do this with the kicker gear off, but you just wanna bend it down a little bit. That way it locks that washer. And then put it back in there and you're good to fucking go, Charlie. So now that you have that done, you've got majority of the bottom end done. You're doing great, you're doing phenomenal. Now we're gonna put the clutch basket on. In our case, we swapped it out for a billet basket. Absolutely phenomenal. Gonna throw a little bit of assembly lube on that collar. Gonna rub it in real good. A little bit in here too. And then slide that on there. You want it to slide in between the 2 gears. You're gonna come to the front. You're also gonna lube her up right here. Make sure you get in between all those little cracks. After you got the basket on, you're gonna wanna put the next washer. Put a decent amount of lube on that. Put that in there like that. Put a little bit of lube. You got your lock washer for the clutch basket. You're gonna put it into that groove right there. Put this bolt on. So now what you need to do is tighten the basket bolt. In order to do that, you're gonna have to hold the basket. EBC Brakes makes this cool tool. You might be able to find it online on like Amazon or something. And this locks right into the inner hub basket and the clutch basket itself. You just gotta align it right with the teeth. It should slide right in like that. So you're gonna hold that, tighten it down, 45 foot-pounds, I think. This EBC tool makes it really, really easy. You just hold the basket like this. That's it. And now remember what I was saying earlier, you have to tighten this bolt before you leak down test it. And I believe that one is 50 foot-pounds. Refer back to your climber manual, we do have one here. And now to get the crankshaft to lock so you can tighten this bolt, what you're gonna wanna do is put a rag right in between the two gears and pull back on that. And now when you go to tighten it, it should lock up where you can now tighten this nut. Now after you torque this bolt, don't forget, because it's very easy to forget, to crimp this lock washer. We're gonna hold off on putting the clutch plates in. Lastly, what I wanna do is put the keyway and flywheel on. I'm just gonna line that up so that way it's straight, and then we're gonna make sure that this is set properly. I like to put a little bit of grease in the slot where the keyway sits. This is an OEM keyway. We're not advancing the timing or anything. This is a stock motor. Put that in there, and then I like to just go, ooh, Jesus Christ. Go in there with a screwdriver and just press it down. That way it's just even. Now you're gonna take your flywheel and align it with that keyway. You'll know if it's in there, it should sit a certain way. Just to double check, what I like to do is with the phone flashlight, just look down the path and you should see that keyway. A little bit of Loctite on there, that bolt on there. Zap it a couple times. We gotta set the pickup coil. I'm gonna set this to 20 millimeters. Think like the rule of thumb, it should be a credit card's length in between. I use this tusk tool that really helps a lot. You need the exact measurement. I want to set it right there. Sometimes the Phillips head could be really annoying with those screws, so it might be easier just to go in with a flat head. Be careful because you can strip them out pretty easily. Got a brand new oil drain plug. Gonna put a fresh crush washer underneath. That brand new John. And then you just want to snug this tight. That's it. Now, normally before I even go as far as putting the stator, flywheel, basket, inner basket, I like to pressure test it, but since we're in the situation where I don't have the case, the cylinder studs, I just put all that together. Lastly, for today, we'll just put on the stator side cover, and then we're gonna continue tomorrow. I'm gonna go get these studs that I'm missing here, and then try and just remove 2 of these larger studs up here, which I'm gonna then, heat up, WD-40, heat up, WD-40. The local shop has 6 studs, just missing the 2, so I'll go get those and then try and just get those out overnight. But we're gonna put this stator side cover on, then we'll finish everything up tomorrow. Ladies and gentlemen, sorry for the interruption, but we're here to let you know that there's about 100 spots left for the Pink Machine 1989 Yamaha Banshee giveaway. This is not a customer build, this is a giveaway that you could win for $100, and it's maxed at 200 spots total, halfway sold out. First place takes home the ATV, second place is 200, third place 100, fourth place a free entry into the next giveaway. If you live far from New York, we can ship to 48 states. Everybody that's watching outside of America, I am sorry, this is USA only. A lot of people reaching out from the UK, Canada. It's USA only. Sorry. So use this time wisely. $100 per entry, and as soon as it's sold out, we will draw the winner live on our Instagram. This is all the information that you need to know to enter this giveaway. So it's day 2, almost completed with the motor. You seen yesterday we got pretty far. We just had a little bit of a setback. Digging Racing, shout out to Chris. He came in clutch with the studs that we needed. Honestly, I went and looked around the shop and I found majority of them, and I had them here. It's whatever, I'll use them on another build. Anyways, something that I mentioned earlier in this video, the main reason why I had bought another case is because the other ones were mixed match. You'll see you got K37 and then K37. If you have a top half and a bottom half that have different letters and numbers, they've been mixed match. You got a Frankenstein motor. Majority of the people wouldn't even realize half this shit. I see people on Facebook Marketplace trying to sell like a top half only. Don't do that. Now we're gonna put the studs in. We'll be able to put the pistons on, then the cylinders, leak down test it. You can see majority of the motor is completed. All we gotta do is tighten some things up on the clutch cover and then just pre-soak the clutches. We got 1 U stud, one of the back ones. There's 3 different studs. You got the longest in the back, middle, right in front of that, and then the shortest ones are on the side. You need 4 dowel pins. These make sure that the cylinders are aligned and are seated where they're supposed to be. So if you're curious what the stud part numbers are, you need 2 of the 08064, you need 2 of the 08388, and then you need 4 of the 08318. So now that we have the 2 rear biggest studs inside of the case, we're gonna put the 2 fronts. You'll notice that at the top of this stud, there's no threads. So there's a specific way that this goes, and that is up. So that way you can put the nut over that, it drops, and you can get in there.
It's too sublime, so rewind and analyze. Read between the lines, spark the L and catch that next rhyme. This is for the real This is for the
So a lot of you guys might be wondering what this tool is that I'm using. You could find this probably at your local Advanced Auto, Napa Auto. This is called a stud remover tool. Originally I was putting like 2 nuts on the stud. It's just so time consuming. So it rips the stud right out. You can find these gaskets on bonzigarage.com. Always have these stocked, use them all the time. I find that they work the best. You see this blue line? That's where it seals. Originally, I didn't even really plan to film a video, so I started setting up this motor because I was just gonna do it on my own time. That being said, we have the rings already on the pistons. I already put one of the clips in. The wrist pin is in there too. These are Wiseco 513, 64 and a quarter pistons. We sell a bunch of pistons on Bonzi Garage. We don't have Wiseco listed yet because we just became a dealer, but we will have these very, very soon in all sizes from 64 to 66, and then even the big bore 68 millimeter. We got Pro X, WSM, Wasner, now Wiseco. I use all different pistons, pretty much whatever I could get the fastest and whatever the person, is looking to do. If they're trying to stay within a budget, maybe we'll use a casted piston, but for the most part, I try and just use the forged pistons. You want to get in there with some lube, and then even get inside, outside on the wrist pin, and then you could just spin it over. Make sure that when you're putting the piston rings on, there's a number. You want that facing up towards you. Obviously, you're gonna put the bottom one on first and the top one. This one is N25. You always wanna see whatever the letter or number is up top. The arrow on the piston, that's the exhaust. Arrow points towards the exhaust. Don't put it on like this. Wherever the arrow is facing, that means you gotta go towards the exhaust. So make sure you got hella lube on your wrist pin. Slide that through. Same thing goes for the other side. Hella lube inside, spin it around town. You set your wrist pin in there, that way it's easy, and then you just slide on through. When I'm putting the outside clips in on the piston, I like to just put a rag right here. That way it doesn't drop down in there. Otherwise you're gonna be fishing with a magnet for a while. So when you're putting these in, you wanna put the opening away from the little slot. So what I like to do is like the complete opposite side. And when you're putting it on with gloves, your gloves can get caught in between the clip. Just be careful. Grab a little driver, push that up. Let it sit in there, and then make sure you hear that click. And the same thing goes for the other side. Make sure it's on the opposite side of the slot, and just put pressure. Keep pushing as you go around. Grab the screwdriver, pry the last little part. We are locked in. So after you get your cylinders bored and honed, I would thoroughly clean them. Get any debris out of there. Take WD-40, spray it all inside the cylinder walls with a rag, rub around, get any excess dirt out of there. And then what you want to do is take your assembly lube and lube the shit out of the cylinders. Because on the first startup, obviously you don't want it to be fucking dry. You ain't going in shorty dry. So you just want to finger blast the shit out of these cylinder walls. Now I already pre-set up the cylinders. We use brand new V-Force reeds, brand new OEM intakes. You got the new clips on there, the 2 gaskets that comes with the V-Force reeds. And I put a little bit of sealant because the Banshees love to leak around all the base gaskets, so super important. Just put a little bit of silicone on both sides of each gasket and let that sit for a couple of hours and dry up. Another thing too, a lot of people will forget this. If you got your cylinders powder coated and you pulled out the coolant plug, make sure to put that back in. There should be always a rubber plug at the bottom of your cylinder. If you're missing this, that's a problem. You're gonna leak coolant, you're gonna destroy your motor. So make sure before you put the cylinder on, you double check that that plug is in there. When you're putting the piston inside of the cylinder, make sure you have it set up correctly and you're gonna be squeezing where the circle is. You wanna squeeze both of them real tight. Do not force it. If you force it, you're gonna f up your cylinder walls. Make sure everything is aligned and just gently push down all the way. Just put all 4 nuts on. You ain't got to tighten them and cinch them down just yet. Be careful when you're putting whichever cylinder you put on first because it can fall down in there and you definitely don't want that. But I'm just gonna hand tighten all these and leave them loose for the most part because we're gonna be running a cool head on this Banshee. And sometimes when you tighten the cylinders down all the way, it can be a little bit of a bitch to get the aftermarket heads on. The OEM head fits on way easier. Now again, lube the shit out of her. Really just fucking bang the shit out of it. Now that we got the cylinders on, while I work on the head, I'm gonna let the clutches soak. So just grab yourself a nice little oil pan. Clutches, only the fibers. So the brown ones, spread them out. Take a little bit of transmission oil. Spread the love and just fucking spin it around town. Now we're gonna be using a cool head for this build. That being said, we're gonna need to install some O-rings. So you'll get a kit. When you're putting the O-rings on, you'll notice that sometimes they could want to like jump out of the slot. So what you're going to want to do is definitely put some grease on them. This is the one for the top half of the cylinder head. And then we're also going to put a little in the slots. And then you're just going to want to wipe this off after you have that. Just go around. It should just, you know, guide itself. It may pop out a couple of times, but that's what the grease is for. Any excess that you have, just kind of scoop it on your finger and then just go over the whole thing. I like to make sure that there's plenty of grease in there. Just wipe off whatever excess that there is. That way it doesn't pop out like that. You see how it keeps popping out. Then you got these two smaller guys right here. They're gonna sit right into these grooves. Bam, bam, just like that. Now that's done. Then you got these two smaller size O-rings. Those are gonna go right in there. And then lastly, you'll have these brown ones. These are for the domes themselves. And depending on what fuel or compression you're going for, you'll have different size domes. In this case, he wants to run pump fuel. For the most part, this Banshee is stock, so they're 22 cc domes. Put a little bit of grease in between the slot here. Slot it right in there. You have all these O-rings in, the two in the center, the one going around, the two for the cylinders. You'll be left over with a bunch of little guys if you're using a cool head. Now, every head is different. Not every one you need to use the little O-rings, right? Some heads you don't even have to run aftermarket head studs. You might be able to get away with the OEM ones like the Chariot head. You don't have to change the head studs at all. So what we're gonna do, rip cheeks. So there's a slot, the little slot you wanna be facing towards the front head stud. Put both those on here like this. The coolant port, one going down to the coolant joint, always faces towards the back. You're gonna wanna line that up. It can be a little bit of a bitch sometimes. Don't push down with like crazy force. You don't wanna f anything up, and you also don't want to move the O-rings. You should be sitting like that. Now all these little ones, they're gonna go over each stud. So you have 5 on each one. You should have 10 little O-rings. If you're using the cool head, you're gonna need these. You're gonna put all the little O-rings in here. And then after that, you just install this and you're ready to rock. And I believe for the cool head, you don't need any crush washers or acorn nuts. I believe you can just get away with the stock OEM bolts. The OEM head is really easy. If you're, doing a stock build, you don't have to do all of this. If you're trying to build something with a little bit more power, chances are you're gonna be using an aftermarket head, so you're limited to only so many options. You're either gonna be using like a Redline head, Chariot head, cool head, maybe some Chinese f***ing head. I normally stick to the cool head and Chariot head. Now that you got all the O-rings on there, make sure they're sitting where they're supposed to be. Then you're gonna take your top half of the head and you're gonna put it on just like that. It's really hard to f this up. You have the 2 mounting points in the front. You can't put it backwards. You're just gonna lightly just push all around. You just gotta move the cylinders around. That way it sits how it's supposed to be. There you have it. Your cool head's installed. So you got 10 up top. Now before you tighten all these, just make sure if you didn't tighten the case of cylinder nuts, you make sure you tighten those. And they gotta be torqued to 20 foot-pounds. I normally just hand tighten these. I don't go crazy. And I do them in a crisscross pattern. Once you got all those tightened up, then you can go back to your cylinder head. If you have the OEM cylinder head laying around, you just follow the numbers. You're gonna tighten all in the middle. You're gonna go here, 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 here. So this is number 10. If you're using the stock OEM bolts, it's gonna be a 12 mil and you're gonna torque these to 20 foot-pounds. I'm gonna go across 10 on each one and then go back and do 20. And now you're one step closer to doing a leak down test. Next thing, we're gonna put the brand new spark plugs. What you're gonna be using is NGK BR8ES plugs, and that goes by part number 5422. You don't have to go to a motorsports dealer. They carry them at AutoZone, probably even Advance Auto. And I'll just tighten these until they're snug. Depending on your intake setup, you're gonna have crossover tube. If you're using a billet intake, you're not gonna have the crossover tube. That'll be eliminated unless it's like an older Pro Design one or maybe like a Duncan Racing one. Before you waste your time putting this on, make sure that you already have the clamps preset on here. Just put them on like that. Use this line as a guide. I like to leave them more towards the top. Like I said, sometimes they'll leak from right here, so I will use like Harbor Freight clamps, but being that these are brand new intakes, I don't think, or at least it shouldn't leak. So now you're ready for a leak down test. If you don't know what this is, pretty much you're just pressurizing the motor to make sure that no air gets out. That way when you first start the bike, you don't blow it up. You can buy one of these kits on eBay. You could even make one for yourself. What we're gonna do is plug up the exhaust ports, put that in there like that. Same thing goes for the other side. You're just gonna use this plug, just grab an 8 mil, zap these. Now, once you have your motor plugged up, it's probably good to have soap and water on standby and like an old Windex bottle. If you see that the gauge starts to drop, what you want to do is spray around all the gasket points. So all around the reeds, all around the actual pressure gauge itself, because that could be leaking, around these clamps over here, around the head, spark plugs. You're just looking for somewhere that's going to bubble up, and that's how you can find your leak. We're going to put 6 pounds of pressure in it. The idea is in 6 minutes, it should not drop more than a pound. So we're gonna drop it until it's at 6 on the dot. And now what I like to do, stopwatch, click start, and in 6 minutes I'll come back. So we'll follow up with you guys once it's 6 minutes. So I'm taking a video right now to send to the customer for security purposes, insurance purposes. There you have it, people. 6 minutes, it has not dropped at all. Honestly, I could probably leave this shit overnight and it'll still be at 6 pounds. Make sure you pressure test it. Like, I don't care how good your work is, shit happens, so every single one gets pressure tested. We're 7 minutes in, it hasn't moved at all. So what I'm gonna do is release this pressure and we can continue building the motor. I normally like to do this before I put any of the gears on, because if a crank seal was leaking, all that shit's gotta come back off. Take that out, take the gauge out, clamp off. We're gonna put the OEM clamps back on. We're getting ready to finish up the clutch side, so gotta take a little bit of lube and put it on top of this O-ring. That way the clutch cover, slides in and doesn't fucking rip the O-ring. I'm going to take the coolant hose, push that on there. A little bit of a This one on the bottom could be a little bit of a to get on. You're in like a tight, cramped area. I like to put it on upside down just so I can get to it. When you're putting the clutches on, a little bit of a mess, you might want to put some cardboard. But you're going to start with a fiber, followed up by a steel. You don't have to soak the steels. Matter of fact, these already come pre-lubed. Now you'll notice that they have tabs, and also one side is going to be round and the other side is going to be sharp. I like to put the sharp side coming out towards you, and you're just going to follow the inner hub basket. So what you're going to do is you're going to put one right there, align with that, one there, align with that, one there, align with that, one there, there, there. Fiber, steel, and you should end up with a fiber at the end. For this motor build and majority of motor builds, I like to use a pancake bearing because I have welded the push rod to the ball in the past, and that's gonna help avoid doing that. What we're doing is we're taking this out and we're putting the pancake bearing in. This is gonna go behind the pressure plate like that. You're gonna start with a washer, then your pancake bearing, and then another washer like that. So it should sit like that. Gotta make sure that the Allen key slot is facing towards you. So you either screw it in from the top or the bottom. Put that in there like that. How you doing? Now when you're putting the pressure plate on, you wanna find the arrow on the inner hub basket. You see that arrow right there? We're gonna align that with this arrow. Now what you're gonna wanna do is take all your springs and just go around the pressure plate. Install those, and then install all 6 bolts, just like that. And these don't have to be wrenched on. Just like once you're grabbing, that's it. I like to do these in a crisscross pattern as well. And once they're tight, they're tight. Don't over tighten them, you're gonna snap it right into the inner hub basket. Now, once you have the pressure plate and the springs installed, what you're gonna wanna do is come up to the top of the case, pull on that clutch arm, pull the clutch arm towards you. With the screw, you just wanna either back out or go in. That way you align the arrow with the arrow on the case. And you want to get behind there, hold back up, and then just tighten it down. You don't got to go crazy. Once it's snug, and it should be able to move around freely. If it's tight, well, you're gonna have an issue. Make sure it's got free play. And that's pretty much it. And what I meant about the arrow on the clutch arm and the arrow on the case, if you come over here, you look at the clutch arm, there's an arrow right where my finger is, and there's also an arrow on the case. I like to keep it just a little bit behind. Now I've already pre-assembled majority of the stuff on the clutch cover. It's not much, but the circle center insert's got all the new bolts, the seal, and then the water pump seal and the bearing. Now when you're putting the water pump seal in, you want the flat side facing towards the engine. So the seal goes first, which goes behind this bearing. After that, what you're gonna wanna do, take your water pump, grab a little bit of grease, slide that through like that. You're gonna have to put a pin, come to the back side, slide the pin through the shaft, then take your impeller, put it over that, followed up by a washer, and then your circlip. Be careful when you're putting on that clip. Flip it back over. You're gonna put your water pump gasket. Make sure you get a good one. Don't cheap out and buy the fucking Amazon kits. They're garbage. I like to use the WSM water pump kit. We also sell those online as well. You'll notice that it's got a seal going around the gasket, and it's a thicker gasket. Now you're gonna take the gasket, sit it right there like that. Take your cover. Now you got 5 Phillips head screws that go here. Like to put a little bit of Loctite on all those so that way they don't back out. Also tighten these in a crisscross pattern. After that, you could slide your little grommet right in. Lube on here. This is for the overflow. And you're gonna run the overflow hose from this little nipple we just installed. So you're gonna run this overflow hose just like that. It'll come through this hole right here, and there'll be a little stopper. This will run to a T that'll sit on top of the motor. We'll run to the back of the crankcase and then run up. All right, now that we have that done, pull the motor towards the edge of the bench. There are going to be 2 holes on the clutch cover gasket. One is going to be for the coolant joint, and one is going to be this dowel pin right there. Sit that just like that. It's really, really hard to mess this up, but somehow one of you guys that are watching are going to f this up. Then you're going to take the clutch cover, align everything, and just kind of wiggle back and forth. Give it a light couple taps. Don't slam it because you don't want to f up the water pump. You'll notice it'll just go. And make sure, because I've seen this happen plenty of times, that your seal doesn't fold right here. Put a little bit of lube on that kicker gear. Now, before we tighten them one by one, we're gonna put all the bolts in and just slowly threading them in. That way, it's aligned through the hole in the gasket. Now, there's 9 bolts total, and one of them is different. One of them is gonna be longer. It's gonna be this one right here. So that part number is 06040. This is gonna go where the dowel pin was. So right up here in the corner, this is your longest bolt. The rest of the bolts are gonna be the same. You're gonna start them with a screwdriver. And I'll also do this in a crisscross pattern as well. A drain plug for your new O-ring in there. And then with the OEM ones, just be careful. Make sure it's straight, make sure it's threading how it's supposed to be. You could really just strip the threads on these super easy. It shouldn't give you an issue at all. So if it is, just back out and try it again. Then you could go ahead and put your kicker on, put a little grease in there, wipe that excess grease off. And then lastly, your water pump cover. Takes 3 bolts. So there's like 3 little last pieces to the puzzle. I'm gonna put this T on here. You're gonna put it where it's literally a T in the one that comes out of the clutch cover. The rear hose coming out of the case right there, just like that. You can run it through underneath, because that's how it's gonna sit once it's in the bike. And then you'll have another hose coming out, running up behind the gas tank, going through the clip, down, and that'll be your overflow. Secondly, we gotta put the clutch cable lock on there. This locks your clutch cable in just like that, and then your wire from the stator run underneath and lock in like that. And then lastly, your carb overflow hoses will run in between here. So I'm gonna take this back case bolt out and put this in. That way we can lock the overflow hoses in here. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is how you do it. This is a crispy, brand new motor. Now, obviously, your situation might be a little bit different. You're probably gonna be, reusing majority of the parts on your motor. Maybe you just get the cylinders, bored and honed, just do a top end. Maybe you go crazy and do everything like what we just did. I'm gonna drop this into what is gonna be a brand new 2006 50th anniversary. If you're looking to get something like this done, we could definitely do it. Matter of fact, like I said earlier in this video, I'd rather take in more motor restorations than full restorations, because it gives me a little bit of free time to do, other shit that I want to get done. So reach out to us. The best way to get in contact is through Instagram. If you're leaving a comment on this video, chances are, I'm not going to see it. If you want to get in contact with me, shoot us a DM on Instagram. If you don't have an Instagram, make an Instagram so you follow us and you're up to date with everything else that we got.
Yeah, this is for the real MCs. This is for the real MCs. You know, G-Side. This is for the real MCs. This is for the real MCs. And why? As I increase my height and visualize through my red eyes, I analyze the wise and prophesize on our demise.